Hello, hello, chat. How's it going? Hello, Early. Hello, Astralith. And Win. How are you doing today? Alright, I'm gonna wait until a couple more people get here, but today they're gonna be doing the Faded, talking about next capsule and Astralith. Everybody has been asking me to do these and talking a little bit more, giving more info on what we actually did, who did what, and talking a little bit about the process on how to make the mythics. Hello, Longnub. How's it going? And Dynaguy. Welcome, welcome. Now, the title is clickbait, of course. We all are aware here that I did not make 2 mythic levels. I hosted 2 mythic levels with the help of multiple amazing people. It's been a while since we talked. It has been, because you haven't talked. You don't talk, actually, Maddie. I've never heard you talk. So, let's start things off a little bit by giving a little bit of context. Let's give it with a little bit of context of the mythic. So, from what I understand, it's really funny. I think mythics actually do give you 5 creator points, which I did not expect that. I genuinely did not think that he would actually increase the amount of creator points that you get. I thought that 3 was going to be the max. But for some reason he did. He thought it was a good idea to give you 5 creator points for a mythic. Like, that's so many. I feel like that's all too many. But I also feel like if you go here and like check the creators, like, I'm pretty sure, yeah, I need like Jesus Christ. I need like 20 mythics to like start getting up here. Because like 20 mythics, that's 20 times 5. That is 100. Would that get me in the top 100? It would barely get me in the top 100. It would get me 87. Like, that's ridiculous, right? I need to get 20 mythic levels in order to remotely get close here? You're wild. You're crazy if you think I can do that. But anyway. Easy work? Yeah, just easy work. Drop 20 mythics. It's crazy that, like, in my head, like Experience D and, like, Zentic, like, Vibrant are, like, some of, like, they have the most in my head. But, like, seeing Vibrant at number 3 and that Yuhanseo just has, like, 100 more, it's just wild. It's just absolutely wild. But anyways, hello everybody. How are we doing today? We are gonna finally come around and have the talks on why next Capsule is better than Astralith. Hello, Subpixel. How's it going? So, where to start? I think we should just start with the beginning, right? I mean, technically speaking, it is 1 mythic per month, so I just need to sacrifice like 2 years of my life, and then I'll get to 100 creator points, you know? Yeah, exactly. Just 2 years of my life completely dedicated to grinding this stuff. Alright, so let's start things off with Astralith. So if you don't know, I have a video of Next Cap Soon and Astralith both on my channel. So each of the parts with who did what is actually on those videos. I would recommend everybody to check them out if you haven't already. But if you have, then you know a little bit of who did what. But I'm going to recapitulate for the new people here to talk a little bit about how this thing's. Hello, Neuver. Nope, I have not started talking about these yet. You played actually with a mirror portal today and it feels like a whole different level. Yeah, I would assume so. I feel like a lot of people did not take into perspective the fact that the whole mirror effect when mirroring an image. Astralith was a meth? I don't think so. I think Astralith as a level was actually pretty okay. I think I've been in collabs that were definitely a lot messier than it, but it definitely did have its shortcomings and its issues. So that is mostly the biggest part out of this, is that each of these levels wasn't like super easy to make. It wasn't like some super like, oh yeah, we just made them just for the like we did make them for the funsies, to be fair. We make them for the funsies, but this still required a lot of effort. So let's get this started, shall we? Astralith kills you for 3 months. The level took a month to make. Please relax, Maddie. Chill with that. Chill with that. So as a whole, we can start things off by just going over a little bit of the part. So this is Locos' part. Loco takes a little bit of creativity and puts the little signs for post-blowing and Astralith. This is actually something that I was not aware of until very, very much later into the process of the level. I didn't know that this was going to be referenced in the level. But yes, Post-Blowing is essentially the prequel to Astralith. Obviously, if y'all know, we have made a couple of levels that are all speed builds. All of these levels are made with the intent of being speed builds. In this case, we have 24, which was the first one. Then we had Post-Blowing, we had Astralith, and Next Cap Soon. Now, will we have more? Who knows? No, we'll talk about it more when we get there. There's also pastel poles in Who I Know, who are also made by the same group of people, but they're completely different from this specific line of work. You know, they're made. Are we getting a tutorial on how to get mythics? No. We're getting a tutorial on how levels get made, which is very different. Now, we started off with Locos' part. Locos' part is super adorable. As you can see here, this cart is entirely done in a 3D perspective by having two different sprites. So you have the front that is right here. This is all 2D. And you have the back right here that is also all 2D. And these are connected with, I forget which layer they're on, so excuse me for that. They're connected by gradient triggers that are following the player and are parallaxing in order to make this feel like 3D. So when you play it, this will break the level for sure. So when you play it, it actually looks like all of these gradient triggers make add depth to the actual car, and you can see that they are all parallaxing to give it that depth. Super interesting effect on Locos' end. Definitely something really, really cool that adds a lot of really cool stuff to the part. You can also see I'm gonna have to be exiting Astralith a lot because it'll corrupt the level if I play in the editor. You can also see that the amount of things in the background is actually not as many as people would think. Obviously, the background is mostly always all there. It's parallaxing pretty slowly, so like it takes some time for all of the things that are on screen to be seen, and that's a really big advantage that art levels have. Is that we can get away with a bunch of different things by just making depth really, really interesting. So a way to do this in this case is by parallaxing that whole set of trees. Usually, if you want to make a whole set of trees, you will probably need to make a whole set of trees for this whole entire thing, which is so much work. But by adding a very, very slow parallax that follows the player basically at the same rate, as a player. You can have the background slowly moving and not and save up on some objects. Hello, Lavender. Going and let me know. And Unknown. So now we get into moving. Oh well, actually, let's talk about the turtle real quick. Something really funny is that Loco was making these symbols or sigils for a lot of these, and some of them look very funny. I think, where is it? There's one that looks like it says Blee. Oh yeah, this one thought for a moment I thought it said Blee because it looks like a, but I just misread it and it's just symbols. Very funny little thing here. Yeah, little Bogart, who you can see as a kite in Post Blowing. That's a little reference to that. And then yeah, we have this transition, and so this transition is just having a bunch of layers of different trees. And they're silhouettes here for the most part because while you're transitioning, it doesn't really matter. And while you're transitioning, it's all over here, technically speaking. You get to see this whole transition by having these parallax in front of the player and hide where the player is. The sexist tries again. Hey, it strikes again. Always does. Always will. And then he dies. We did kill Bogart later on, but that is whoa. Actually, isn't okay. I won't talk. So how the swing changes color when there's a shader in the background. Yes. So the swing itself has an isolated shader that you can see. Where is it? Where's the little thing? So there's a lens circle at the beginning that goes in, and then once you actually get to the swing copter, which should be around here, it actually isolates just the player for this time going on, and then everything else happening in the background is actually this edit color, but this edit color is the actual change of the swing, and then the actual background changes with color triggers. There's actually not a thing. So all of these things, all of these leaves, sorry. Yeah, I'm explaining that, Loco. All of these leaves in the back that look like they're using a shockwave to like move, actually are using, I hate this. Well, whatever. I'm gonna preview lock it. Are actually using, where are they? These little goobers. These area triggers are being used to scale things up in order to completely make it look as if the leaves are waving, whenever they're, instead of actually using a shockwave trigger. This is a little workaround that Loco used in order to actually get that same effect without needing to use a shockwave trigger. Or a shockline trigger. So yeah, you can also see that Loco uses the new keyframe system in order to use a lot of these objects that are floating around and make them move. It's actually super useful to use keyframes for movements like this because you can actually get more precise animations instead of having to, like, you know, pinpoint. With usual, like, follow triggers and, like, move triggers and stuff like that. By using keyframes, it actually leads to something. However, here comes the biggest thing that we have figured out from this collab. While we were making this collab, merging this was a pain in the ass. All of you who are here have no idea how much we struggled to get this working. Why, you will ask? Well, here's the thing. Once you make keyframe triggers, they all have a very hidden little ID that does not show at all in the editor. All keyframe triggers, once you place a keyframe trigger down, it'll have that that ID recorded. So if you place this one will probably be like ID 27th because it is the 27th one that I'm placing on the editor. However, if I copy them from this level and paste them into another level, they will have that same ID. Here's the issue. Loco used a bunch of keyframe triggers. So let's say this one has ID 1, ID 2, 3, 4, and 5. Later on, we have Volity, who also uses keyframe triggers for her part over here in order to guide the camera to make certain camera movements a lot easier. So here's what actually happens. Whenever Volody was making her part and her own copy, the trigger that she placed down had the ID number 1. Because on her end, it was the first keyframe trigger that she placed down. However, when we were trying to merge it in, it actually changed things. So her trigger being ID number 1 and Locos trigger being ID number 1 merged together and started causing conflicts that made it so that the levels were just getting corrupted. That is incredibly annoying. That is actually one of the biggest issues that we had with Astralith, was having to recreate all of the keyframe triggers in order to make the transitions and the merging work. Now, this is not something you'll ever encounter if you're making a solo, because for the most part, most people should make these things on the same copy. How do we figure this out? So this is why you have a team with a lot of people. In this case, I was the one merging, in charge of this merge, and I realized this issue, and I talked about it with some of the other members. We had Maddie and Chun, who are very, very good at bug fixing, and the three of us talked together and tried some stuff out. In the end, Chun figured out that these IDs actually exist on the backend, and so we had to manually count each of the IDs of how many triggers we use, so that the solution to that is that, for example, if I go into a new level, and I make a new level, I need to create 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because Locos part has 5. And then whenever I create my 6th one, the 6th one is actually going to be the 6th one here, and the 6th one whenever I paste it somewhere else. So this one is the actual one that we actually need to care. So we need to duplicate all of them and put them into another part to make them actually work. So whenever you spam, whenever you actually want to use keyframe triggers in a collab, you gotta make sure to give people a certain amount of keyframes that they can actually use. Kind of like color IDs or group IDs, except that now with group IDs, you don't really care anymore because you can give thousands. But you have to also take this into account, because it is really important when merging keyframes. Another thing that people don't realize that was an issue was gradients. Once we actually got into making gradients, let me put preview lock so we can move around the editor freely. Once we got to making our own gradients, something that you'll realize is that each gradient has an individual ID. These ID, if I remember correctly, only go up to 999, same as the colors. They don't go like the groups, where they go higher than that. So because of that, in order to make things also work, because if you have the same gradient ID, it deactivates other previous gradients, we need to make sure that the people in each part use the correct gradient IDs. So for example, if you have color IDs from color 1 to color 100, then those are the same gradient IDs that you have to use. You cannot use 101, because that will belong to somebody else. And so if I have a part later on, then in that case, I have to use different ones. I'm trying to get someone to collab with. How do you find somebody? I really want to do one with a great creator or someone with experience. I think for the most part, if you want to find creators to help you in your projects, the best way to do that is to talk in a lot of public servers. There's tons of fun people in public servers that are available there, and they would love to participate in collabs just like you do. And so having those resources and making friends with people is usually what leads to this. For example, for Astralith and Next Cap Soon, those are collabs that I made with tons of my friends. All of the people that are part of those collabs are people who I'm friends with and I'm pretty close with, mostly for a lot of them. There's some people who we met for the first time while making these things, but it is still a friend group that is still pretty large. And fortunately, we are composed of very, very talented creators and very, very smart artists. So you're gonna collab with people in Zero Star Chat? Nice. Yeah, the best way to talk to people about this kind of stuff is just to reach out in public servers. For example, we have the Penthouse. The link is down in the description if you'd like to join it. So I would suggest y'all to just join servers and talk to people, make friends with people, you know. Thank you, William. I appreciate that. So moving on to the next part. We have gotten to transition. All of this part looks amazing. Loco did a fantastic job with the immersion. It fits perfectly with the song. The parallax looks amazing. The art is of very, very high quality. Even if it's relatively simple, it's not as realistic as some other levels, but it does a very, very good job at texturing itself, at detailing certain aspects, and it's very, very nice. It does a fantastic job. Then we get until Kepler's part. Now, Kepler's part. This is Kepler's part, or as we call it, Saito and BPI's part. This part has a lot of very funny things to it. So Kepler was originally intended to do this part all by themselves. And so after some time of like talking things out and then just realizing how things were, we kind of like talked it out with Kepler and be like, hey, Kepler, are you actually going to be able to finish this on time? Because the original deadline for this level was 1 week. Remember, guys, this level was originally intended to be made in 1 week. So, because of that, we wanted to make sure that Kepler was doing okay. And since he was dealing with a lot of things as well, a lot of busy time, because it was around the time for a lot of people had exams and stuff like that, Kepler talked to us and was like, I'm sorry, I can't finish this, but this is what I have so far. So Kepler had made a lot of the trees, had made a lot of the platforms, a lot of the structures, had drawn some concepts for what they had a vision for. And then we were like, okay, we need more people to get into this because we need this part finished. So we reached out to BPI, who had finished his part like very recently when this was at the time of this. And we got along Saito, who was part of the server, and if y'all know, he was also in Post Blue Ain. He has a very, very laggy part at the very end. And so Saito were like, hey, Saito, can you help us with this? I know that you're probably busy, that you weren't in here to begin with, but like, can you help us out with the collab? We kind of need some help for somebody that can be fresh, come in and help us out finish this stuff. Saito was a goat, came in, finished the part with BPI. They both did amazingly. Yeah, they did a very, very much fantastic job by adding a lot of elements to the background that was already there. You can see as well that there are the resemblances between Locos' background with the floating islands and the little trees on the sky and stuff like that, and then it being reflected onto here. That is something that Kepler and Loco had originally talked about. So they talked about the fact that, well, hey, how do we make our parts feel connected together? How do we make it feel like it's all within the same world? And so they figured out that, well, you can put islands in the distance in my background, for Loco in this case, and then have those islands then coming on later when it's Kepler's part, and then be introduced that way. Same thing here a little bit with the castle, and then you going later into Rel's part, Rel and Lacrima's part. I hate this. For those who know, you know that I hate this. Lacrima and Rel decided to make something very different, and we'll talk about it when we get there, because it's the next part. But anyway, a lot of really cute effects from particles and stuff like that were added later on. Kepler's icon here is so cute. Look at this little animation. And then this is the part where we needed to start making transitions. Now, something that people struggle a lot with is that not everybody can make transitions, and that is okay. I think that most people, you don't need to know how to make transitions in order to be a good creator, but it is important to at least understand them. So, what happens here? Well, it's actually pretty simple. What was happening here is that we are zooming in the camera, so let me actually play it. And show y'all what is happening. I should probably put like a star pause and let me put a star pause here. And then let's slow down the game a little bit. So, hello Erica, how's it going? And hello Styx. Am I going to make a third mythic? Well, that's not entirely up to me, unfortunately, so we'll see. But here you go. So what's happening in this transition at the end of this part is that we're actually zooming into the background to make things feel a little bit more during. So this animation happens. We zoom in into the background, we have all of these things parallax, and there's also a motion blur effect that we're adding here in order to make things feel like they're actually moving. You can see that it's actually getting blurry. And then we move the camera down and we parallax the two islands away from each other in order to show in that emphasis of us zooming into the the castle, and now we're transitioning, and then after this is just a panning out of a very big glow, and then boom. That animation was done in help with Maddie. Maddie and I worked on that animation, in that transition. It was super fun to work with Maddie because he's super good at making animations. I want to do art type levels like you, but most times I try, it comes out goofy and doesn't look good at all. I try many times, watching many tutorials so bad. I think that tutorials are a good way to learn, but I think the most important part about all of this is just that you need to focus on actually learning to improve as an artist. Can I put Family Guy in the corner? My attention span is, ooh, I don't know if we can do that. Maybe we can put some Subway for Surfers. I'll think about it. I think improving as an artist, if you want to make art design in GD, is super important, okay? Like, actually trying to draw yourself. Take out a pen and a piece of paper and start sketching out the things that you want to do. If you want to visualize something, if you want to have an idea inside of the game, drawing it is the best way to actually making that idea be a thing. Obviously, some people are very talented and can directly hop into GD and make these things like there's no issue. But personally speaking, I think drawing these things out, even if it's a very short sketch that looks super ugly, doesn't matter. It's super, super fun. As an example, I think I can show this. It is my collab, so I will be showing y'all a little bit of a something. This is something that I drew for something secret. Now that's all you get. You don't get to know what it is about. So, if you ever need anything, for example, like, oh, I want to know what this is going to be like, well, you could just go and draw it. So, spoilers. Spoilers, yeah, spoilers. Again, these things don't need to be made into GD directly. You can always work around these things and be making just like little sketches here and there. On my Twitter, I posted a while ago the art that like Dio and I made for our part, and I think I'll talk more about it when we actually get there. Anyway, we get into Lacrima's part. And Rel. So, how do we actually talk about this part without talking about the biggest elephant in the room? Optimization. Look like a spider tank from 86 anime? I do know what you're talking about. Unfortunately, it's not inspired by 86. But I do know what you're talking about. So, this part is laggy. I don't think I need to tell you that, because I'm sure all of you have experienced it. Really good at making sync layouts, but for Deco you suck? Nah, don't say that. That's the thing. A lot of this is just all about practice. The more you build, the more you spend time on these things, the more you'll improve. Obviously, some people improve at different rates than others. Some people are very, very good from the get-go and improve super fast. Some others, not as much. So, this part. Oh my goodness, what to say about this part? This part was double the object count originally. It was double. Just so you know, this part was double as object heavy as it is currently. You're welcome, everybody. Okay? This was definitely not an easy thing to optimize. All of these things from Bruno are very, very laggy. So, here's the background. Background looks amazing. Funny thing is, the background looked nothing like this. The background looked completely different original. This was very realistic clouds with a very like different kind of shading. And then while the progress of making all this, we talked to Lacrima and we're like, hey, this is not really matching the style that we're going for. This is a bit of a shame because you spent so much time on this, but it is so unfortunate that we might need you to reconsider and reshape some of these things. And so we talked to Lacrima about it and came to an agreement on a way to make this optimized in a way that it's not as laggy. Now, originally, if I remember correctly, these clouds were 8,000 objects, and now they are only 2,000, which is still a lot. Actually, no, let me directly go to the clouds. The clouds themselves were 8,000 objects. Are they? Oh yeah, they just kept it at 800. That's a shame. But yeah, those clouds were 8,000. It was horrible. But now, if you look at it, this background looks very, very good. Were the high object count caused by like leaks? Part of it, yes. you can see that the light leaks here, mostly towards the end, are very, very strong. But the actual thing that makes this part lag a lot is not at all anything to do with object count. It has everything to do with the shaders that Lacrima used. As good as these light leaks are, they're still very optimized. I think that there may be like a couple hundred objects, if anything. Yeah, not even. Yeah, they're nothing. The light leaks are absolutely nothing. So the biggest issue for this part, well, first of all, was the stained glass. Stained glass by itself will not take a couple objects because of the way that objects exist. Unfortunately, Lacrima is not exactly known as a very, how to say, optimized creator. So, as you can see, these stained glasses have a lot of objects. Here, let me go and select all of the objects that these contain. Okay, that's not that bad. Let me go to this layer now. And then this layer. Look at all of this. Look at how much the stained glass is. Almost 2,000. Okay, we're getting it. I think the whole stained glass might be, yeah, I was gonna say 6K. That's about it. So it's 4.5K. And having all of this stained glass be affected with a shader trigger, now usually these wouldn't lag too much because they're just parallaxing normally, so it's pretty chill. But for the most part, this is lagging so much because of the shader triggers. Shaders are insane at how horrible they mess with the game. They lead to a lot of memory leaks. They cause a ton of lag. If any of you have ever experimented on mobile with the bulge shader and the pinch shader, sometimes it'll even crash the game. Well, okay, I'll check it maybe later, this recap, probably after stream. Thank you, I appreciate it though. So the biggest part about this is be careful whenever you use shaders. Shaders are very, very important because they add a lot of things that make the game completely different. Like the filters and the effects, all the things that they add is something that is very, very demanding for a game that is trying to render tons of objects at the same time with very custom shapes and colors and all of that stuff. So be careful when you use shaders and try to use them moderately as to avoid lag, because they are very, very laggy. But I will say that this part, the stained glass does not help this case. Obviously, it looks absolutely gorgeous when you actually look at it. Like, looking at the detail on the stained glass, it is gorgeous. It is beautiful. It looks so highly detailed. And the fact that this one is broken and this one is broken too is super pretty. But is it worth it for the lag? Sometimes I feel like maybe not. On other news, we can actually talk about other stuff. For example, these rocks and these pillars. These are super highly detailed on Lacrima's part, and they're super well made. The colors and the integration is very, very well done. You can also see the reflection of the stained glass on the floor. Very, very good. Same with the parallax. They kept going with the parallax, same with this bridge where you're going across. Very, very, very good. Now, we can finally move on to one of the best parts in the level according to a lot of people, and I'd say that it holds true. We are into Peter's part. Peter's part is adorable. Can we just talk about the cat cloud? Like, look at that. That is so gosh darn cute. That is so cute. Okay? I don't want to hear anybody talking about this cat cloud like it's not the cutest thing ever. It is adorable. I love it. So, this part is very interesting. Peter was actually one of the reasons why this collab was started, if y'all have seen Urel's level. Peter made some fan art, I think, or some art of something. I don't exactly remember what it was, and it was super cute. And so we invited him to be a part of this, and, you know, ended up making such a banger part. What can I say? Genuinely, this part looks absolutely phenomenal. The amount of detail put into the backgrounds, the depth that it has, all the different elements, as well as all of the texturing on the like on the rocks, on the grass, on the it's all so custom. It's all so unique. It feels so vibrant, you know. It feels so pretty, and also having these at the front with a shader trigger that isolates them and makes them blurry, that also helps add a lot of depth into the part. So, for example, if we go and play it again, we'll have to see Lacrima's part for a little bit, but in slow-mo, because of course we're going at slow-mo. But as you can see, this part still has so much detail put into it. It looks gorgeous. I mean, even the little lens flare from the sun. So good. Originally, the transition here was different, but I changed it because I thought, oh, you're falling. So from Lacrima's part, you were falling down from a very, very high up, something that looked very, very high in the clouds. And then you're falling onto this. So I was like, well, might as well have the player come up from above, even though the gameplay doesn't flow at all like this. And now you get into Peter's part. Now, Peter's part is absolutely gorgeous. You can see that the flowers have a little bit of that blur to them because they're in the foreground. The background is super animated. It looks super beautiful with all of these floating islands and the streaks of clouds in the sky. It is absolutely gorgeous. I really wish I could remove my my UI interface, but unfortunately I do not have mods. Hello, Vredix. How's it going? The lighting is so beautiful. I would agree. Yeah, as you can see, the texturing in the grass just looks absolutely gorgeous. Like, come on, can we really just are we really just gonna ignore how gorgeous that looks? Holy crap! Let me go and get the star paws and the time warp. Put them all the way over here in the middle of this part. Now we're normal speed. So you have little details in this part. For example, Kits was a big inspiration for Peter to make this part, and so Peter put a little art of Kits and Peter having a little picnic in the middle of the field. There's also a lot of really cute references. For example, you don't see it here, but there's a tombstone here that parallaxes in the level that shows Bingus Valley, which is the name of this little area of the level. It should be this next, yeah. Bingus Valley. Every single little place, every single little location in this level has a name that we actually came up with. There's a list of them. I might actually get it later. I don't know if Maddie or Subpixel, you can still access that, but you can probably send it in the chat. You should have Farm Studio Ed. Yes. Also, the tree. That's the other thing. So this is the point where things change a little bit in terms of the Mega Collab, because we have unlimited amount of groups. We have so many thousands of groups. However, when we actually come to the colors, well, there's only 999. There's not unlimited. There's still a limited amount. And with this level, it actually unfortunately did kind of start becoming an issue because art just kind of requires a lot of triggers, a lot of colors, sorry. Mostly because you have a lot of very different shades, and if you want to micro adjust a lot of them, you want to create different cutout channels so that everything is actually different things. Is that foreground a shader? Yes, it is a shader. So how do you make it so that you have enough color triggers? Well, you start reusing them. As you can see here, this tree and this tree are actually the same color. You can see that this tree and this tree are actually the exact same color sets. However, there's a set of color triggers right here that will all get spawn triggered. I think it's right here. Oh yeah, it's right here. And all of these triggers, yeah, Peter organization, and all of these triggers will suddenly change the trees colors from green to pink to have the sacred colors. The unintended effect is that these little particles here that were supposed to be there actually are the color of these petals that are supposed to be pink. For a frame or two, you can actually see them be green, because you can see some of them on screen before this tree comes in the parallax. It was really hard to adjust. I did my best, but this is how we managed to get that recoloring when the trees are actually just the same exact color channels. There's just a bunch of color triggers that change the colors completely in order to have a completely different look. Is it a bad habit for mostly using HSV for your art level? I don't think so. I think HSV is very good if you're trying to work with a specific set. For example, in my part for next cab, I have a block design that all uses the same exact color, but I know that that color only has a lot of little changes that don't actually, like, they don't need the different colors. So all of them can be the same color and just an HSV tweaking. Obviously, it is a lot easier to do that when you're starting off and then copy pasting, but if later on you decide to change some of those micro adjustments, that's when it starts to become an issue. For the most part, art levels, I would recommend you actually try to use as many colors as possible, but don't make it a habit of using a lot of colors. Just try to make it fun, you know, try to make it like, oh yeah, I'm optimizing here and saving some here, but I'm still trying to use this, you know. Yes, it can, exactly, like Locos said, it can be very useful in specific situations. Am I entering the Space Gauntlet context? That is a very hard question, y'all. We're still figuring it out. We're still in talks, and we'll see how it is. But if we are entering the contest, y'all will see something really, really cool, is all I'm saying. So, now we get onto the next part. And before that, I want to talk about this transition. This transition went under very many different changes. I don't think I have a copy of any of the old versions of this. But, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be mini whoops. This transition originally had this wall right in front of you that was covering the whole screen, and then at some point turned invisible, I guess? It turned translucent so that you could see through it. However, we thought that that was just a little bit too complicated, and it made things a little bit messy. We also didn't like the way that it parallaxed everything, so instead we decided to just make it a big hole, and then now you can actually just see the orbs, you know. And in here, because we're going into a cave, we decided to dim down the colors and make things a little bit darker, because that's usually what happens if you're in a place where there's less light. Your camera lens focuses off so many colors and tries to adjust to the amount of light that is on the screen. And so that's what happens here. And then once we get out of there, boom, we have bright flash because you're coming out and there's big blown of light. Now, Kits' part. We have a lot to talk about Kits' part. Not like it's a bad thing. However, Kits had a bit of an issue, same kind of with Kepler, where they weren't available to make the whole thing. They instead decided to draw a lot of the stuff. So all of the art in the background, as well as a lot of the concepts for these arts and some of the little features, were actually drawn by Kits on like on their tablet, and they just sent us those sketches. And so instead, we had a lot of different people work on this part. So as you can see by the little goobers over here, we have Saito, we have BPI, we have Peter, all three of them helping with this part in order to polish it off as much as possible and to make Kits' idea into a reality. I came over it and did a final pass with a lot of the little color adjustments, tweaking some stuff compositionally, making sure that everything worked well, that it was fairly optimized. There was a couple of visual bugs, but this part was all drawn out basically as a concept on Kits. I would very much recommend you check out Kits' Twitter, because I remember, I think they posted all of that stuff on Twitter, and it was super cool. Their sketches look amazing. Even though they were just simple sketches, they looked beautiful. Sorry, chat, I'm getting a little water break. Talking for a couple hours will do that to you. And that's how this part came to be. We had 4 people working on this entire part by making one simple little sketch into a reality. Going over these things, it's actually really, really cool how you can see Kits' style remain consistent, even though 4 creators, let me remind you, 4 creators worked on this part, and the art style looks entirely consistent. It looks as if it was all made by one person. These 4 creators worked super hard to maintain that consistency and to keep a style that actually worked super well for everybody. And so you can actually see that so much effort was put into the specific part to make it as much as possible like Kits originally wanted. Let's play through it. Let's go mini. Because we are supposed to be mini. It is super iconic, I agree. Definitely think Kits did an amazing job at this. I forgot to restart camera. Well, anyway, you get to see the panning. So we get to that transition, and boom, we get to Kits' part. And now, obviously there's a couple of visual bugs due to star position. That is just unfortunately how GD works. But you can see that this part is just absolutely gorgeous. It has such an amazing and expansive atmosphere. These rock formations in the background look absolutely incredible. Even though they're super simple, they're just like simple shaded objects with really big glows on them, it still looks absolutely incredible. Can we just really talk about these? Like, these are so good, and they're super simple. It is literally just shading that just makes this feel completely like a realistic 3D, or I wouldn't say realistic, but a super stylized 3D model. Super, super cool. Now we get into this transition. So for this transition, we didn't actually have too many ideas. And so it was a bit confusing because we didn't know how to transition from between these two parts. But while talking with some people, Maddie and I came up with the idea of having a paper crane that flies you from one section into the other. And I think this is one of the most like iconic parts of Astralith. It ended up being this transition, which is very weird because it wasn't like a transition that we thought was great. It was actually pretty rushed and done last minute. But we had Glory work on the little crane for us and then just draw the crane and make it in GD. Okay, well, we're gonna have to go a little bit faster. I wish I could actually adapt the time warp in real time, but you know, what can you do? So now we actually get, this might be buggy because start position, and start positions love to be buggy. Yep, it is buggy indeed. Okay. I love start positions. They love breaking everything. There we go. And so everything transitions in from the left. It parallaxes super fast, showing the velocity from the actual movement. And at the same time, we have this complete movement and animation from Maddie that animates the crane to make it feel like it's actually flying and touching, like landing on the water. Look at it. And then it bounces off, leaves a little ripple behind, everything shakes, and then you can see it, like, you get off. It's such a cute and animated scene. Like, it's so cute. I'm so glad that we actually came up with this idea together, and that we actually managed to make it a reality. Special thanks to Gloria for making the little paper crane. I think it was Maddie. But it might have been Chun. If it is Chun, apologies. It might have been Chun then, huh? Because I remember I did some of the reshading and the parallax, but I think Chun might have done the animation then in that case. Yeah, thank you for letting me know, Subpixel. Sometimes so many people worked on this level. Oh, you did animate it. Okay, good. I figured it was you. Because I remember talking about this with you. Hello, Charlie. How's it going? You hate Maddie so you don't give a... Alright, valid. So, as you can see, now we get into Volity's part. And I think this is a lot of people's favorite part. I think a lot of people really, really like this part. This part has a lot of charm to it. But it definitely was not a very easy part to get through. So this was actually, by technicality, the last part to get done. Now, by last part, do I mean that it was the Volley was the last person to actually start or get it done? That's not exactly true. So, whenever we actually got to making this part, Volity had this entire part done, this whole section until the forest, done in the first, like, week. Here's the issue. Something that you might have noticed is that a lot of the parts in Astralith are actually pretty short. Each part is between like 7 to 9 seconds long, okay? So most parts are actually not as long to give you enough time to like experience the full environment. But when we were making the parts, Volity decided to take 2 parts back to back in order to like actually expand on her ideas and actually make a lot of different things. So this was actually really complex because due to personal reasons, Volity did not manage to get this done in time. So we had to get Loco and Dio on the job. So Dio helped a lot with composition, some of the colors, changed some of the stuff here and there, and helped Volity with some general feedback. And then we had Loco, which this entire last section of the ship was just not there. It was not really existent. And so we had to make a transition between the end of Volity's part into Subpixel. And so that's, well, where Loco came in and decided to clutch up and do that entire section almost by himself, with the help of Subpixel and me to do some particle effects and some minor adjustments to the composition and colors. It was definitely a big effort from the whole team in order to get as many ideas down as possible and to make this part feel finished and feel completed. Hello, Rexter. How's it going? was definitely not easy. It was a super, super hard job to get this entire thing going, because as much as like we wanted to, this did have a big issue of being the worst part to work on in the editor. This part in the editor is an entire mess. You will not understand what is happening. There was a million visual bugs because Volity plays on a 4:3 screen instead of a 16:9. Or is it? I don't remember what it is. It is a different resolution. I don't know. It's not 16:9. It's something else. If Subpixel, you can correct me on that end. But it made it super complicated to fix a lot of the stuff because there was a lot of things that were just not showing up on screen, a lot of things that were just mislayered. It was a bit hard to work with. Yeah, 4:3, thank you. On top of the already mentioned bug of the keyframe triggers that completely broke the whole thing. So yeah, we had to completely rework this. And as you can see, this in the editor is not understandable at all. Some of the stuff that is supposed to be in the beginning is just later, and some of the parts that are later are just not there, they're at the beginning. And so everything was just a super big mess in order to manage to get this done, but I somehow managed to fix all of the visual bugs. Locos somehow managed to help me finish this entire ending section, and after copy-pasting a bunch of things, changing things around, changing colors, tweaking things, it was just such a hard work for the whole team. This was done. Now, Vality did an amazing job still. That's the part that I want y'all to take out from this, is that Val did a fantastic job at getting so much of this done. This is such a big part and such a big endeavor that by herself, she did an insane job finishing so much of the part. It was like 70% done, which is insane to think that almost 70% of this entire part, one of the longest parts in the level, was done in like a couple days. It is crazy how fast she is. Super, super, super impressive. I will say, I think one of the biggest flaws that I think we ended up having with this part was actually my fault. I changed the gameplay for this part because I thought it was very unintuitive, which I still think it is, but I think that my changes to it actually might have made it a little bit more complex to read. I feel like the part is overall easier, but I think it makes it a little bit harder for people to actually understand what is happening. Which I think we could have done a bit better job at like integrating the gameplay into the visuals. Unfortunately, we had not much time, and I'll explain why later, but it was interesting. It was in the end pretty fun, no matter what. You hated fixing colors in her part, everything is HSV, yep. That was a big issue too. A lot of issues happened with this part, but in the end, it was an incredibly fun part. And like, look at this, it looks beautiful, it looks gorgeous. Like, I really wish that we had a better time to make this part flourish a little bit better. And I wish personally that I had more of an idea of what direction I wanted to take this part. Because in the end, I do feel like it does feel a little bit disconnected in itself, which, you know, I definitely think I could have done a good job at talking with Val about it. Have a good rest of your day, Northern. I'll see you in the VOD. I hope you enjoy it. You didn't make them, by the way. 20 people made these levels. Yeah, I'm aware. I hosted them and directed them and worked on pretty much every single part and bug fixed pretty much every single part and merged a lot of them. Obviously, the mythic level title is definitely more clickbaiting than anything, but that is on purpose. I think out of this entire part is so good. I definitely wish that we had more time to clean things up, but in the end, amazing work. Moving on onto Subpixel. And everybody, since Subpixel is in the chat, we can say very mean things to him about this part. We can be very rude to him and say how we really feel. So, welcome to the part that every single person that I know of complains about constantly. What to say about this part? Generally, it's not actually a bad part, it's just the gameplay is absolutely unserviceable. So, we actually get to Subpixel's part. Subpixel has a very cute part, and the camera's bugged. Subpixel, I love the fact that your part just never works for me, no matter how hard I try. Your bug fixing does not surpass the effort to build these parts, I feel. Well, let me tell you that I not only bug fixed, but I also made the longest part in each of the levels and the end screen in each of the levels, so... I did actually build in these levels. I feel like a lot of people think that I just uploaded these, which is really funny. Like, I feel like a lot of people either think that this is a solo or that I did absolutely nothing, when I think that out of every single person in this collab, and they can all tell you this, there are plenty of them are in chat, I am the person who did the most in both of these and to spend the most amount of time, both in terms of the editor and in total for this project. So, we actually get to Subpixel's part. Finally, it actually works. Holy shit, look at it. It's Subpixel. Oh, now it doesn't work. Does it only work on attempt 1? Well, chat, it also only works in attempt 1. You know what to do. Alright, let's get this. Oh my god, it works. Perfect. So let's not restart. Let's actually keep it too. So, Subpixel actually does something super, super cool that I haven't seen actually many people do. Loco did it too, and it's really cool to see it again here. But there's a lot of custom little particles that Subpixel uses with little glyphs in order to actually add to the part. I think this is so cool. You can see it now in levels that are just like for example, Icy Stars, that they use particles in order to create this like effect of it being like super liminal and super like beyond what, you know, the world has. This kind of like magic system. So I'm not so sure if you know that much about spending effort. Yeah, Subpixel knows because he was actually a part of this level. Same with Casey being a part of Next Yatsune. Trust me, these are people who are in the project that you're talking shit about, so they know better than you do. More than anybody else in this project, really. Or outside of this project, I should say. They know better than anybody else, and I also know better than anybody else how much fucking effort was into this. The amount of effort that the team put into this level is absolutely incredible. They put so much time and effort, I cannot even begin to explain to you how much time was put into these parts. Generally, as much as all of this was done in a week, sorry, no, in a month, in less than a month, technically speaking, the amount of time into this month is absolutely insane. I remember seeing the amount of hours that I had clocked in when playing, when making this game. This level, Jesus Christ, I'm tired. When we were making Astralith, I checked the amount of hours that I spent in the editor, and that was over 300 hours of the editor, just from working on Astralith. And I'm pretty sure that Subpixel and Loco, if Loco is still here, can tell you, actually Maddie's also here, I think that I spent more hours in Discord calls or in Discord chats talking about the project, organizing the project, managing the project, scheduling the project, making sure that parts are working, that the copies are good, bug fixing, optimizing, all of that shit, making sure that the systems work and everything's shit fucking working. It was genuinely like, yeah, same, like Maddie says, we were in VC almost 24/7 for almost a month. It is absolutely incredible. Even my girlfriend, to the point that like she decided to like tell me on one of those days, like, hey, like you need a break, we need to go out and have some fun today because you've been working so hard. And on top of that, I had a full-time job. Like this project was a time cruncher. But anyway, we get into Subpixel's part, and I feel like a lot of people really don't like Subpixel's part because of its gameplay. I think the gameplay is definitely the part that makes it a little bit harder for it to be understood. Oh, well, it's bugged. Okay, we'll keep it back. For this part, it's just the fact that the gameplay is actually not very readable. And that is super valid. I think that that is something that we could have definitely improved upon. I think that the biggest thing is that once you actually know what is going on, this part is really not that bad. It's super straightforward. There's not that many inputs. A lot of it is just knowing where you're supposed to jump and where you're supposed to land. But for the most part, the amount of like difficulty that this part is really not that bad. Also, I want to point out this is not underwater. And I know that everybody will say that this looks like it's underwater. Talk to Subpixel, he's in chat. He can argue with you. So, the designs here are super cool. If you have 20 goons building your level, it really isn't that difficulty. Samba, I would love to see you get 20 goons to make a level in a month that is this good. Please, go for it. Genuinely, I would love to see how it turns out. But and whenever you do figure that out, and if you do make it, please show it to me. I would love to see how you get 20 goons to make something this good. All that to say is that originally when Subpixel was making this, if I remember correctly, he drew a block design that looked very, very alien to me. And I was like, ooh, wouldn't it be really, really cool if you added like some sort of alien eggs? Because in the original concept art for my part, I had some alien eggs in some of the flora and some of the design. And so we talked a little bit about it, and he ended up adding these. I think he was looking for ways to connect the structures together, and so he ended up making some goop, some blue goop that resembled alien goop, which was really, really, really cool. So in order to make all of that, it ended up being so cool. The floatiness and particles that make it look underwater. Yes, I think it definitely is like the tone, the color shift, and the particles that make it feel like it's underwater. It's crazy because while we were making the collab, a lot of people in the project were asking Subpixel if the part was underwater so that they could theme different things around it. But every single time, Subpixel had to be like, no, the part is not underwater. So, you know, one of those things that it's like, hey, it does look underwater. I understand why people see it. It's unfortunately not the vision that Subpixel had, which is fine. Is there a new collab coming? I guess we'll have to see. You'll have to wait and be patient. We might get a collab going. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, this little group, really funny idea that came out of Subpixel and I just talking about how to connect these little things together and how to make these work. Super, super, super cool work from Subpixel. I don't think it's definitely... I think we reworked your colors quite a few times. And also the fact that, like, I think the groupiness and the alien-esque thing make it feel like it's, like, an underwater thing because of the eggs, the way that it looks. I think that that is definitely something that we could have worked more upon. And I think, like, now looking back on it, I could have done a better job at reflecting what I had in mind for the goop without it making it look alien. And I think you did a fantastic job at taking the idea and running with it and making it a very good job. We also have a lot of parallaxing ground with all of the plants going on and moving on in a way that, like, makes it look very 3D. But obviously, as you know, this is a 2D game. Most of these are just flat surfaces that are just scrolling through at different rates to make it appear as parallaxing 3D, which is really cool. I don't think that the gameplay here is that bad. It is genuinely just a fact of, like, understanding how it works. I think, genuinely, that is also one of the big critiques that a lot of people have, mostly with the Subpixels part and then the train, is that it feels very disconnected. And I think that is the biggest issue that Astralith as a project has, is that it very much feels disconnected. It feels like everybody was kind of doing their own thing, which is what we ended up doing. We did have some conversations and talk about the transitions and some of the theming and bringing things together, but everybody was kind of doing their own thing for a little bit, and we didn't think about some of the ways to connect these and make this feel like a better world, all interconnected, until way later into the process of creating. So it created some sort of disjointedness between some of the parts, but, you know, if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, that's totally valid. And so we move on to the next part, and now we get into a big one, because this is the part that a lot of people don't really know what's going on here. So this part was made by 3 people. This part was started by MaxiKD, who unfortunately did not have the time to completely go into this and completely make the part, but he still did his best. He made that block design that looks super cute. He made some of the aesthetics, he came up with some of the trees and the design for some of them. And then Zender Game decided to be like, hey, I can maybe help something out with the background. What can I do? And unfortunately, Zender Game did not pull through, and it was completely a mess. Not so bad. It wasn't like horrible, oh my god, disgusting, but it did make it very complex because, as some of y'all know, Zender is not known for responding very much. He's also known for sleeping a lot. As if you know any collab that I've had with him, you know that I've complained many times about the fact that he sleeps on the job and he's not responding. So when you need a part to be done, he doesn't get done. at the very least, not anytime soon. You're watching this with a big jawbreaker in your mouth, you must look really stupid. Nah, I'm sure you look awesome. Hello, Asfera, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. So, Zender drew a little concept of a sketch for the level. Actually, I probably should open. You know what? I'm gonna make a new canvas, and I'm gonna try to see if I can find some of the concept art for some of these. Give me a second, chat. Might take me a second. Cause yeah, we had Zender. We had Zender working on this part, and he sent us a little sketch of what the background would look like. And we're like, okay, we can definitely implement this, but it was definitely not a very... Oh my god. I'm looking at some of the chats. It is so funny. There's so many dumb things that people are posting, and like little funny little things to have around. Let's see. Let's see if I can find, my goodness. I don't think I can find it. Huh. I mean, that makes sense. Unfortunately, Zender's Discord is not here anymore, so I can just search for his stuff. Oh, is this it? No, this is Blooming's part. Never mind. Well, anyways, chat. So when it came to Zender, Zender drew the background. He made a lot of the effort to make the background, and then it kind of didn't have the part fully completed. Oh. Big sneeze, chat. Big sneeze. Didn't have the time to finish the whole thing, and so we had to give it to Peter. And now, as you can see, Peter has already helped in 3 parts. Like, Peter has already his part, and then Peter helped in Kits' part, and now Peter's helping yet again with Maxi and Zender's part. So that is so much work from Peter. Peter genuinely worked so hard on this collab. Much appreciated. So he cleaned up this part and added a lot of the little elements by copy-pasting some of the designs, altering them, changing some colors, making some things prettier, changing some things around, adding some pulses. I actually added some of the pulses too, and the glow on the top. Like, that kind of stuff was added by me and Rel, I'm pretty sure. Same with these designs. These designs were all made up by Maxi, and so they were expanded upon by Peter. Why not hire a new person instead of Peter overworking? Because Peter said that he wanted to. I said... A lot of this thing is like, hey, like, we have a deadline that is in... we have a deadline of, let's say, 2 weeks. Okay? And so, during that time, some people will be done with their work early, and some people won't. Peter was done with his work super early. BPI was done with his part super early. There was a bunch of people who, in like a week or 2, were completely done with their work, and all they were doing there was just waiting. And so they decided to help. They decided to be like, hey, can I help out on this part? And we were never put the work on anybody. That is the one thing that I always have. I will always take the work on myself instead of putting the work on somebody else. And the entire chat that is part of this project can tell you that I will never force somebody to do something. I'll always ask who is willing to do a work, and if they do it, that is up to them. That is entirely their decision. If nobody does it, I do it. I always end up doing it. That is just how every single one of these collabs is. If nobody wants to do it and nobody is available to do it, I will do it. And if somebody is available to take it up, to pick it up, and to help it, they will be the ones to speak up and be like, hey, I can actually do this, I want to do this, and then they do it. That is entirely up to their decision. So, never forcing anybody on that. You're currently making a level while the stream, so hopefully you get some inspiration. Nice, I'm glad to hear that's fair. Best of luck with your stuff. Hello, Kosu, how's it going? So, this part has a very funny transition. So as you can see, there's actually a structure in the background here. You can't see it super well. We're gonna have bug subpixel part again. But once we get to it again, there's a structure in the background. Originally, the camera zoomed into it very weirdly, and it seemed very awkward. And it looked like pretty odd. And so what I decided to do is that I changed that transition so that the player looks like it's going inside of that really big structure in the back. You can see it here, this little castle. So that kind of looks a little bit more like, it looks a little bit more like, what's it called? Like Blooming's library that you can see later on in the next part. So that is just kind of like referencing that, huh, we are going into Blooming's library. And then when we get teleported to it, we actually get to Blooming's library. And now Blooming is a weird part because a lot of people really complain because of the high CPS that it requires to beat the part. But honestly, I don't get the complaint. I generally feel like the part is very easy. It's just a little click pattern with the spider, but like that's really not too bad. Overall, though, this part on itself, Maxi and Zender game was absolutely a mess to deal with. This entire part was super rushed because Maxi and Zender were not available very, very late into the process of the creation of the level. And so it ended up being that, like, hey, Peter was free. He decided to have some free time and was like, here, I can help y'all. And the other thing that with this part is that, as you can probably see, it's all kind of merged into one layer because we were rushing to get this done. Now, obviously, it's not horrible. I did manage to separate some of it. But I think Zender game... Actually, no. I'm gonna expose Zender. If y'all have ever seen Zender's levels in the editor, you know that he puts stuff on the same layer all the time. He puts everything on the same layer way too often. It makes it literally impossible to work with some of the parts that he gives us because it is literally everything on one layer. It is so impossibly hard to work with it. But, yeah. He is a psycho, indeed. And so now we transition out of that part, and then we get into Blooming's part. Blooming's part is super cool because it has so much depth into the background, but it's a little bit out of perspective. Let's just say it how it is. It is a little bit out of perspective. The background obviously is at an angle that like kind of doesn't make much sense with how the gameplay is done, but who cares? It doesn't really matter. It's a little bit of a shift of perspective. Unfortunately, it wasn't perfect, but what can you do? The really cool part about this part is that it has these little rotating, oh yeah, there's a time warp here, so the time warp resets every single time. Well, might as well not put it on. Perhaps all the buildings are tilted? That is true. That could be true. And so, let's see. I think there's a lot of detail put into Blooming's part. The block design are super creative. They're super pretty. There's so much detail and effort put into them. And then the background is also really cool with the really big structures and the cogs and chains and having the big books here with the B for Blooming. It's all so good and it fits so perfectly the music. It feels very intense even though there's not a lot of things happening. It feels very like, oh no, like you're ramping up for the drop. And now we get into Wick. I love this part. Wick's part is probably one of my favorite parts in the level. What to even say about this part? My goodness. I love this part. It's this little transition here that we made a mock-up of. So, for this transition, it's actually really simple. They just use shader to like make the transition work, and it just glitches out. It's just really fast so you don't see it, and it kind of just looks like you're just like blipping between the two places. And it's so cool. Put a star pause here, then reset the camera. Feels like a clock tower and I fuck with the skill a lot. I agree, it's so cool. Sorry, chat, big sneeze again. And now we transition into Wick. Oh, and her background is gone. That is great. I love the editor. It's so good. It is amazing, some would even call it. Hello Ripluck, how's it going? So now once you transition into this part, which is absolutely awesome. I love this part. Oh, now it's broken again. Well, can we make it to work? Oh, there we go, now it's here. Great, I love star position. We get into Wick's part. Wix part is absolutely gorgeous. The block designs are super detailed and super pretty. What can you say? This part is so good. Generally, Wick is one of the most talented creators out there in terms of like modern design and like art design. She is absolutely amazing at this stuff. It is incredible. Even the quality of the art, like the background looks so good. The little churches, the little pulses, and like the way that the colors shift to lead into BPI's part, that is so fun. You may have 2 mythics, but do you have a rated list HA? That's what I thought. What is a list? Oh, what does a HA mean? I do not have a rated list because I think I have 1 list and it's fucking useless. I lists are a kind of funny thing that they added. Not very useful, but you know, they exist. So yeah, Wig's part is super cool. I think the art looks amazing. The design looks really good. The effects look very pretty. The pulses are so good. It just flows so well. Even the gameplay feels like it flows so well. I generally know that a lot of people don't like this transition right here because it's like very sudden how you have to like basically jump right away, but you can pre-click because obviously you're a UFO. Ah, congratulations, Yoshi fan. Good job. Will we make an entry for the Space and Cosmos Gauntlets? I guess we'll see. But yeah, this part is absolutely gorgeous. I don't really have to say much about this part. It just looks amazing. Wig did a fantastic job. And now we get to BPI. Now, being 100% honest with you, chat here, and it's something that I've told BPI before, this part is definitely the messiest. This is definitely the messiest, most rushed part in the level. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but this was BPI's first time actually doing this style of art. So for some of the people that say like, oh, I am bad at art, I could never make something this good. Well, look at this example. BPI's first time making art, it was just properly directed. He gave him all of the feedback that possible. He listened to it. He was super receptive. He was super kind to work with. He works super well and super efficiently. And obviously, this part has a lot of people that will complain about a bunch of stuff. And that's okay. That is understandable and undeniable. But I still think that for his first time, he definitely did an amazing job. And like Maddie just said, this is the part where we actually start to see more of a cohesion between some of the segments. So let me go back to Wick's part. I assume this is a ×3 speed. Thank you, Wick, for making a ×3 speed. I hope it's ×3 speed. Alright, let's get this going. Where is the time warp? Put it here to make it a little bit better. Oh, my goodness, my neck really hurts for some reason. So, okay, let's see. Does it work now? Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Raptor, for that. Oh, is there a time warp trigger there? It's so weird. Why does it get cancelled? Oh, there is a time warp trigger there. That makes a lot more sense. Okay, let's put it here then, after the time warps. Alright, so we get into BPA's part. Please work. This is where we start to have a little bit of progression. Okay, the whole background is broken. Well, what can you do? I love star positions, guys. We all love star positions. So this part originally had absolutely horrible hitboxes. So hitboxes are kind of weird in this part, and I still do agree that they could definitely be improved to make it clearer to what it is. But in this case, for example, like these big circles of light that you can see with the particles were not there originally. These are actually things that Aurel and I suggested to BPI so he could actually change them in order to make it a little bit more clear what was dangerous or not. So they pulse red Oh, now they're just broken, okay? Yeah, they pulse red at times in order to tell you, like, hey, resyncing. I love resyncing technology. In order to make them seem a little bit more dangerous, but I feel still like a lot of people didn't get that memo. And it's understandable. This part is very confusing hitboxes wise. It looks very, very open, and the gameplay is not very intuitive, and that is definitely something that we could have worked harder on, mostly because of how important of a part this is. Oh, and now we're back to... yeah. But yeah, absolutely amazing job from BPI with the effects. Absolutely incredible job with the setup. As some of you know, BPI is an effect creator that also does a lot of animation. And so you can see that this entire animation was something that he did. It is completely broken. My goodness, I am not doing this level justice. Actually, no, star positions are not doing this level justice. So this whole part was one of the first ones to be finished, actually. BPI completely cleaned this up super fast and helped us out with a bunch of other parts. But then he was kidnapped by the evil glory in order to make this transition, so that the transition would make sense. So what do I even say about this? This is the part where a lot of people in this level either love it or hate it. Now, I'm gonna make a poll real quick for everybody in chat. I will hope everybody votes here. Do you like the train part? And I'm letting y'all vote. Do you like the train part? Do you think the train part looks cool? Do you think the train part looks fun? Do you think it plays well? Do you like it? And I'm not saying love it. I'm just saying like it. I'm being pretty generous here. I'm not saying do you think it's the best thing ever? I'm just asking, do you like it? Do you feel like the part belongs in Astralith? Do you feel like the part makes sense with everything else that you've seen right now? So if you think that this part works perfectly fine in Astralith, that it looks amazing, then vote yes. If you think that the part actually doesn't really fit in with Astralith, or if you just don't like it, then vote no. Both of those are very, very valid. Does not belong, but it's so funny. I would agree there. So here is where the biggest issue with Astralith happened. When we were planning this level, we decided to make this high fantasy themed level. So it's all about art, it's all about the fantasy, it's all about making it very very medieval-esque, you know, having those vibes. But the thing that a lot of creators decided while talking in the server was that they wanted to make it more nature-based. A lot of people really wanted to focus on a lot of the nature aspects, just like in Post.1. As you can probably see by basically every single part before this, every single part is very much focused around nature, around trees, around grass, around very pretty colors that focus a lot more on the nature environments than, you know, a specific set piece. And so this is where the entire shift of the level completely breaks for the next 2.5 parts. Now, just because you like the part, just because you don't like the part doesn't mean you hate it. This is something that I need to make very important, everybody. You can still think that the part is okay, or you can still think that you don't like the part, but you can appreciate it for looking good. Which is why I just personally do not like this part. I know that a lot of people here do, and I absolutely understand where y'all are coming from. I don't like it. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, y'all. This is the main reason why I don't like Astralith as much as Next Cap. Because this part completely takes me out of the experience. Now, this train part is one of the biggest issues that I have with GD creators and GD creations as a whole. It wasn't made to be played, and it wasn't made to be in a GD level. It was made for a YouTube thumbnail and a YouTube video. It is something that has been put into here that serves absolutely no purpose to actual being a GD, but it's only there for the wow factor. And it's what a lot of people actually really like in levels. A lot of people look at Kuluk, they look at Blee, they look at things like, for example, this train part in Astralith. They look at Berserker, and they look at these really cool things happening on screen that serve no real purpose to the gameplay or to the narrative. They're just there to look cool. And if you like that, that's perfectly fine. That's the first thing that I want you to know. It is perfectly fine to feel this way. I personally don't like that stuff. I don't really get hyped up from seeing cool animations or seeing the train going on the screen. Obviously, I can think that these things are cool, but I personally just don't find that very interesting. I think that having a wow factor, like a very, oh my god, look at this thing, it very in your face, is something that if you want to have in your level, go for it, but it's not going to capture my attention. Unfortunately, I just don't vibe with that kind of stuff, and that's okay. And I think all of you who do vibe with this stuff are super valid to like this, because it is a really cool part. It does look awesome. It looks fantastic, okay? There's absolutely nothing wrong with liking this part. I just want to preface that before I start talking about this part, I don't like it. For that idea. Now here's the actual reason why I don't like the part. Because that's the reason that I'm going to give you all. And that I give every single person that I talk to. But here's the actual reason that I'm going to only say on stream. Y'all can do with this information however you want. I don't like this part because of how horrible it was. The process of making this part was some of the most anxiety-inducing, excruciating, sleepless nights. There's so much to unpack here. This entire part was an insane issue. And Maddie can very much explain this in a way that is a bit more concise than me, because Maddie worked on this part for so long. I think Maddie worked on this part for longer than his actual part. So, you know, just to let you know that Maddie had an entire part that he completely animated all by himself, and he spent more time on this train that isn't his part, you know? So, just so y'all are aware that what we're working with. So how it started is that this part has the train, and originally, Glory wanted to have the train coming in, and then the train rotating upwards into the sky, and you can go up, you know, go up in the sky and have the train. Now, some of you who create, and some of you who don't create, might know the fact that rotating triggers suck. They are some of the worst optimized triggers in the game, bar none, with the exception of aerial rotates, which are technically worse. Rotate triggers are insanely impossible to work with, because if you rotate something that has a lot of objects, it'll lag. It will lag, always, no matter what you do. No matter if you optimize it, it will always lag. It is horrible. So, how do we make a train rotate without it lagging? Here's the issue. You don't rotate the train. So, this is gonna be a long explanation, but I'm gonna try to make it as short as possible. This is basically in April, I'm pretty sure. This is where, like, rotate trigger bug had not been fixed, and there was a lot of issues with, like, follow player and, like, aligning things on screen. It's horrible. It is disgusting. This rotation triggers are awful. I hope someday Raptor fixes all of the triggers, but it is still a nightmare for me. So how do we do this? Well, Maddie and I came up with a concept originally, which was to actually, no, sorry. Let me rephrase this. Maddie and Glory originally came up with a concept which was to separate the gameplay from the visuals, which I agreed on. They decided to make a skeleton for the train, which I'll show in a second. I'll play it real quickly. But they decided to make a skeleton for the train so that the gameplay was actually the only thing rotating. So for a while, the only thing that actually was rotating was the skeleton, which you can see here. So these blocks that you can see over here, let me lock the preview. All of these blocks that you can see over here, that is the skeleton of the train. That is the thing that is actually maintaining the gameplay and that is actually rotating. So, how do we make sure that the visuals now align with the gameplay? And this is where Chun and I came in and proposed different ideas. Chun decided to try to track certain things and maybe try to optimize it in certain ways. It wasn't working too well. And so I decided to tell them, well, what if you rotate these things, but you rotate them immediately? Instead of rotating them over a long period of time, if you just flip them in the position that they need to be in, once you get to them, then the player doesn't really see a difference, because these things are so massive and they're on screen for so long that just doesn't need it, you know? You don't need the whole train to rotate because it's not on screen all at the same time. The train is going to be off screen, so while it is off screen, you can rotate the stuff immediately so that it saves on processing power. And then we actually get to have all of the gameplay working. Now, that idea is great. I will forever be thankful that I came up with that idea. I also will take Chun because it was inspired from his idea. And Maddie and Glory did an amazing job at making it possible to do this thing within the confines of this. The train was 30k objects. Now I'm going to select it, and I'm going to tell you how much it was optimized by. The train originally was 30k objects. Not the part, just the train. So, as you can see, the train is no longer 30k objects. It is a lot better. It is definitely a lot better. It got cut down to a 10k, which is still insanely absurd. If y'all know anything about optimization, you know how much work went into this. This was so much work to actually make the train bearable, because Glory was very, very strict about wanting to keep the train looking the same. He didn't want the look of the train to change, so we had to compromise. So if it was between compromising between performance or looks, he was ready to sacrifice performance in order to make his train look better. Is that a thing that I wanted? No. I very much disagreed with that, and I had to fight with Glory about this. Not actually fight, we just had a couple conversations in order to find ways to make this more bearable. So how we did it is that Viper and I went back, for the most part Viper, my work on the optimization wasn't as big as his, but he just went back and optimized the living shit out of this. Deleted so many useless objects, optimized things, used the warp, stretched things out. It is genuinely such an insane good work from Viper and from Maddie and from Chun. Literally the whole team was put on this lockdown in order to make this train look good. Of course, Val. I think you did a fantastic job with your part. I've always said this with it. There was definitely some issues, but there's nothing that, couldn't be worked around. We managed to make it and ended up making one of the best parts in the level. So, good job to you. Now, the thing is, this part wasn't done. It still needed a background, it still needed the clouds, it still needed a bunch of other things, because the train was the only thing there and it was already 30k objects. This was miserable. We spent a bunch of time, Diovice and I, giving a bunch of feedback and drawing concepts for Glory, with Glory, like redrawing the clouds, giving different colors. We had like 20 different iterations of the clouds that all look completely different, just so that the clouds in here looked kind of okay. And Diovice and I redrew these clouds like a billion times. I think this final version, the colors were done by Dio, but the design of the clouds was actually the design that I drew. Same with this background. Originally, Glory, if you've seen his tweets, you've seen that like he has a bunch of different assets and a bunch of different things that he had originally in his background. The background was super messy. It was impossible to work with. Like, it was too much going on and you couldn't see anything. We had to cut things down, because it was way too laggy, way too bright. It didn't make sense. So many things in this part went wrong. But in the end, we ended up coming up with what a lot of people think is the best part in the level. And you're allowed for that opinion. But the main reason why I don't like it, it's because it gives me nightmares. This part was miserable to work on. It genuinely made me so anxious and stressed because of how much effort was actually put into this. We spent like a solid week just working on this train. Genuinely. I think we spent like a solid week only on this train. And that's without taking into account the fact that like Maddie and I were still building our parts. But anyway. Now onto the cutscene. We get to the cool part. Let's just play it. So we get onto the cutscene. Now, something that a lot of people don't know is that originally the cutscene where Maddie made was actually playable. Like, you had actual gameplay. But after a lot of consideration and time spent into like figuring out how to make this train, we were all kind of tired of problem solving. I was exhausted of problem solving, and I told Maddie, look, Maddie, it is really, really hard to actually tell what is going on in your part, because there's so many things happening, and you have a custom icon, you have a really big bird flying around, you have tons of particles, tons of parallax, tons of different things happening, mostly from a train part that becomes so laggy. I think it's best if you just make it auto. If you just completely remove all the gameplay and you just make that part auto. At first, Maddie didn't like that. He wanted to try and change the part to make the gameplay flow, to make it work, but I just didn't see the vision coming to fruition, mostly with the deadline that we had set ourselves. And so we decided, look, let's just scrap it. Let's just, take the gameplay away, keep it into a cutscene. Obviously, as you can see, these 3 parts from BPI to Maddie feel very connected with each other, and that is because they work together. Glory and Maddie worked really, really hard to make their parts feel like they were connected, even though the train is still Glory's part and the cutscene is still Maddie's part. They were working together in order to make these things feel like they were interconnected. And then they brought up BPI in order to make the transitions make a little bit more sense, in order for the narrative and whole context of the whole situation make sense. So there is some lore to this Astralith part, and I won't speak personally on it, because it is Maddie's job to speak personally on it. So I'll let him handle that, but genuinely, it is one of these things that, like, hey, this part had a lot of things going on, and then even today, even for me, this lags a little bit. And the only reason why we got away with this whole part that is Maddie's being the way that it is, it's just because it's auto. If this part had gameplay, it would have been impossible, because you just went through the most laggy part in the whole level into a part that has almost no readability. It is insane. It's just insane. So because of that, I was just like, no, let's just cut things short, make it auto. We're not gonna deal with it. You're having to go through a cutscene. It's gonna lag, but it'll lag into a cutscene, so it should be auto. Nobody should die to this. And so now you have this beautiful cutscene made by Maddie. It originally had a bunch of visual bugs, but Maddie and I solved those pretty quickly. It still might have some, but ignore them. Nothing happened here. I would also agree with Maddie here. The part has so many little things going on. I'm going through the whole thing again, but there's so many little tiny details, from people living in the little houses, from the way that the designs of the bird and the designs of the parallaxing of the pillars is done, for the camera rotate, all of that. Everything is so cool. So in order to make all of that feel like a lot better and more like, you know, contrasting with the rest of the oh my god, why is it not clicking here? With the rest of the level, we had to come up with a way to make these 2 parts end well into an actual ending that made a lot of sense. And so how do we do that? Well, the biggest part is that Dio, Vice, and I had the last 2 parts. And originally, Dio and I had talked about the fact that, hey, I wanted to make the part as, like, take all 3 parts, so the last 2 parts and the end screen, and make, like, one whole thing out of it. And so we decided to be like, hey, Dio, like, you wanted to work on the last parts too? Can we work on it together and make, like, a really cool, like, cutscene styled end screen with, like, everything going on and everything like that? And so while we were planning that, we also had to deal with the fact that Maddie and Glory were doing a steampunk train that was into the sky, that shot you into a flying fortress that now you blew up. Like, how do you wrap all of that up in a level? And on the same time, as you've probably noticed, the level has been, like, going from nighttime to daytime, and it's been daytime for most of the level, and now we're back at nighttime, and now it's kind of raining. It's kind of going fast, you know. It's a whole mood, it's a whole vibe. So how do we go into a normal grassy part again that, like, we had originally thought of? Well, we had to completely change all of the concept for our part and work around the fact that we were after this. And so we changed the colors to nighttime here. We completely reworked all of our color schemes. And we were like, okay, let's do this. Let's actually get on this for. And so we get to my part with Dio Vice. We worked so hard on this part. For the most part, Dio focused a lot on doing the concept art. We worked on it together. You can see a lot of the process on Twitter. I'll go more in detail about this part on the actual editor. But this is probably the most effort that I've ever put into a single part. And let me remind you that I was doing this part with Dio at the same time as just hosting the whole level and working on multiple other parts. So this was not easy for me. I think that one of the biggest reasons why Astralith is such a big topic in my head is because of the amount of effort actually that it required for this part. This part by itself is actually not like too, you know, how do I say this? It's not too demanding in terms of like the actual like contents of it. This is a 5-star? No, this is definitely a demon. It is rated easy demon. So it was more so. Oh yeah, I forgot to reset the camera. I love that. Let's put a. I think I can put one of these down. Probably can, yeah. Okay. So we get into this. My goodness, what a part. This part was a ton of effort. Oh, right, the camera's broken. We're good now? Are we chilling? Okay, camera seems okay now, I think. No, it's still broken. But anyway, this part is very, very weird because of how much detail we actually decided to put on basically everything. I don't think there's a single thing that is like completely actually no, these in the background, the very background clouds and these that are completely like non-shaded, but everything else is super shaded and we have animated everything. Ugh. I really like the transition from the glider. I do too. I think it was awesome. I think you did a fantastic job with that one. Yeah. So what to say about this part? I really feel like a lot of people have questions about like how to make this styling, how to make this stuff like this. So I think for now, I'm gonna rest my voice a little bit. I'm gonna get some water and chat. Ask me questions. What do you want to know about this part? Is there anything that you would like to know about this? Nope, you know all you need to know? Well, that's good for you, Wick. I'm glad to hear that. The wings and statues are so good. We genuinely put so much effort into these little fairies. It is crazy the amount of time that required to do these fairies and also like frame animate this one. This is actually like frame animated, which is kind of stupid. But it's not normal frame animated, the frames aren't here. You're actually transitioning from these different frames. Yeah. I'm moving between these frames that I have are over here. So each frame here is perfectly framed so that I could just manage it. How does a color change work? Is it just pulse? No, actually. It is remaking a set of all of the color channels and manually adjusting it. Why is it so good? I don't know. I wouldn't know, you know. All I need to know is how is Wick cracked at the creating, because she's just a goat. What can you do? Oh, the ZZZ. It's so funny. The little sleepy are actually particles that exist already, which are these thunderbolts, which you can just flip around to make little Z's. They're cute. How does one get into being able to do stuff like the block design swaps y'all do? Not specifically that, but being able to do stuff like that on your own. So in this case, for Dio and I, how we were working is that I would take the level whenever I was able to, and I would just do whatever I was able to. I would go in, I would be like, hey, I'm gonna go in with the plan today of making some rocks and we're making some grass, baby. And then we did. Like I just went, did some rocks, did some grass, and I was like, hey Dio, I made some rocks, made some grass. Here you go. If you want to do any changes, go for it. And if not, then you could just move on and do something else. And then Dio was like, great, I'm gonna do some vines today. And he spent the time doing some vines, he did some flowers, he recolored some of the flowers, and I was like, okay, great. So now I'm gonna start to make, instead of just rocks, I'm also gonna have these little monuments, those little pillars that are made of like ruins, you know, to kind of showcase slowly that you're getting closer to an actual building, which is what you get into here. and then I took back the part. And so a lot of it was just us giving it back and forth. And whenever we had like anything that we wanted to talk about, we would just communicate and be like, hey, how's it going? And just be like, I'm working on this right now. What do you think? Do you think I could adjust this? And then can you draw over it? I think that was the biggest thing, is like drawing on top of your GD editor. Let me go get it actually, since so that I can show y'all. But something that we did that I think people actually don't know that you can do, which is crazy. Let me change the scene to over here. Is that I recorded a video of the entire part of the gameplay that I have made, and we just drew on top of it. Like, we decided to just be like, hey, so this is the gameplay. How do we make this possible? And we just drew. And so we had a general idea of like, okay, well, here are the fairies, for example. So we want the fairies to be here. We want the church to be at the very, very end. The part is generally going up in elevation. So, you know, things happening. But also we had some ideas of like, for example, the plants are all growing. It's something that I'm sure that most of you didn't notice during the part, but the plants inside of this entire part grow as they progress through the part. They start getting bigger and they start getting like a lot, like some of the roots that you saw at the beginning actually become these massive plants later on. The flowers start to become bigger. And yeah, hold up, let me show you, I'll chat. This is entirely something that was planned. You can see that when you start the part, you can see some of the small flowers, and as you progress, the flowers become bigger and bigger, and they start taking more of a space, to the point that the flowers just become bigger than the player towards the end, you know? Same with the fairies. They start off pretty small, with having some of the fairies here and there, and then as they go, they become bigger and bigger. Finally, same thing as the vines in the background. So you start by having these massive, like, trees in the back, and then as you go, these are actually just the vines of the trees. You can see it here too. The trees change and suddenly you're into these massive vines as everything has grown way bigger than anything that's supposed to be around you. So that whole aspect of it is what completely changed. Let me go to over here. And so for this, for example, we decided to draw on top of the whole thing. And we're like, okay, so this is where it's gonna go. So in here, we're going to put a very, very big vine that is going to come across these two structures. And in here, we're going to have a little pit where if you go into it, you die. So we got to make the structure so that it looks like you're falling into a pit and that it's actually ingrained into the terrain. And a lot of these things are things that we talked about and we planned through it while making this in order to make our ideas feel like a whole package. Okay, let's go back to GT. As an aspiring decorator, I wouldn't even know where to start with my questions. You can ask anything, Kozu. That's the fun part, is that this is where, like, the part where I'm just going to chill and talk to y'all about this. And before we move on to NCS, which might be a different stream, who knows? Might keep this as different streams. But, like, if you have any questions about anything about creating, let me know, and I'm here to answer them today. How do you guys choose the colors among so many tests? Well, Dio and I know a lot of color theory. I'm colorblind, for those who aren't aware. I have protonomaly, which means that I struggle a lot with some colors closer to the red spectrum and the warmer tones. And so I talked with Dio and we created swatches, which is we experimented with different colors. And actually, that's also part of the Twitter post. Let me get to it. Oh, where is the Twitter post? Some of you might actually not have seen the Twitter post, which is very interesting. Because, I mean, not like I expect everybody to know the Twitter post, but here, to show y'all a little bit better. So we had these different attempts at making different colors. And so here's some of the concept art. So this is for original, some of the concepts that we had for the end's cutscene. This is the drawings that we made for the little fairies. The design of the big fairy as well. We had different designs for her. And some more for the little fairies, as you can see. Which ended up being basically the same in GD. They look very much the same. But the thing is, a lot of it was working out with color. So originally we thought about having different color schemes, having different color sets. So we had this little piece that was made by Dio, and I recolored a lot of the stuff to go around and be like, okay, so what actually works here? And in the end, we ended up coming with these color palette, which we thought would look the best. And this is pretty much like the final colors that we ended up working with. A lot of this is just color picking and being like, okay, well, let's transfer it to GD, and then once it gets to GD, we can always modify it and then adjust things to make it feel like it works properly. And yeah, this is what I was showing you earlier. And so yeah, this is by far the biggest part of actual doing color tests. We just did a bunch of tests with the colors and figured out that, hey, this is actually the way to do it. So how does the color change work? The color change work is that all the colors are set up at the beginning, and then afterwards, when we actually set up the colors for nighttime, we actually switch them up. So we did all of the final colors, which are all of these colors. And then we have all of the custom colors that we made for the nighttime, which we did by color swatching and all of that stuff. And in the end, what we did is that we also have shader triggers here that alter the brightness and contrast a little bit to make the color change feel a little bit less sudden. So we manually adjust some of the brightnesses and the contrast in order to make these color changes feel a little bit more streamlined, and that there's not as much of a big like shift in colors, you know. We are also lucky that we're changing from blues to greens, which are very close colors in the color wheel, so the actual changes are actually not that big. Why is the fairy like, ah yes, it's so nice to finally meet you, Cube? Look, the funniest part about Astralith is having to have the fairy come into contact with a GD cube. It is very, very silly to have actual, like, fairies, like, you know, talking to a fucking GD cube. Let's be honest here. It is silly. It is so silly. But, you know, you have to make some compromises and make some stuff really cool. But yeah. Hello, Andy. How's it going? How do you make the background fit well with the block design so you can tell what you jump on, but it's still cohesive? Again, that still comes back to color theory and making sure that whenever you tweak your colors, to make sure that your background definitely feels like it has the colors as if it was more distant. So I've explained this a little bit more when talking to ZeroSR when making Blue Shift. If you were there during his streams, you might have heard some of these stuff, but whenever something is further away from a camera or from when you're standing, when you're looking at it, there's usually haze and there's usually atmosphere density in your way. So in our case, our planet has a white-ish, blue-ish atmosphere, quote unquote. I'm very much extrapolating here. And so whenever you look at something that is very, very far away, it often looks like it's like tinted with a little bit of blue mist on top of it, making it less visible, and desaturating the colors. The things that are further away are usually a little bit paler, a little bit desaturated, and have a tiny tint of either blue or like yellow oranges depending on the setting of the day. Do I draw? Yeah, of course. Oh, you mean like I want to get to the point where I can do stuff like those block design swaps y'all do on Twitter that Subpixel posts. Any advice on how to work towards that? So, honestly, just draw more. Generally, just draw more. It's gotta be just drawing more and drawing more, because it is super, super important to just keep drawing more. In case of Subpixel and the concept swaps that we've made before, it's been really, really fun, because how it works is that you go and you draw something real quick, and then 10 minutes after you switch, and it's like, okay, well, boom, somebody else has to go. So you gotta move on to the next thing and try to create new ideas. Generally, the best advice I can give you is just keep drawing whatever you want to draw. You have tons of ideas that you want to draw those. To be fair, if starting at night worked the best, even if it was more work, definitely. I definitely agree with that. The thing about the art swaps is that I'm bad at drawing, but it doesn't matter because everybody else is good enough to carry. That's part of the fun. That is exactly it. I suck in the art swaps. I'm usually being carried so hard by other people because I never have ideas. I really struggle to find ideas to make things look pretty. So they usually do the most of the work, and I'm just there being like, I'm here to help. If anything is silly in Square Game, everything's silly in Square Game. Exactly. See, you get me? Can you show us more of the particles? Yeah, sure. So we have a couple of particles here. And here we're using these really, really big stretched out particles that are actually these ones. And I'm having a little bit of hue change in them to have a little bit of difference in color. And I'm making them flicker. And so this creates an effect of having like sun rays that are like bathing on top of, you know, the player. So whenever you pass by this, you have a little bit of sun rays that like come and like, you know, glint a little bit at the screen. Then you have some more of the particles over here. For example, in this case, for this first red flower, which is the first thing that kills you, we have a little bit of particles that are just kind of there to warn you, to glow a little bit harder, to be like, hey, look, watch out for this. For these one, it's just a very, very simple circle that I have made. Where is it? It should not be that far back. Okay, I guess it is probably that far back. Holy shit. Oh, it is 51. Whoops. So yeah, and here, it's basically pretty simple. You have these ones, which are just normal circles. You have glows. And then you have a particle. And if particle, you're just using the radius system in order to keep all of the little squares inside of a radius and then making them appear randomly. So that's how you make those little particles for those orbs. With these over here, these are fun. So yeah, these are a little bit different. Or these ones. Hold up. Let me get that one. So these are pretty fun. So what's working is that we're also working it with gravity, but we are using an Excel rad. So it basically creates an effect where the particles will shoot out and then start from very, very far and then slowly come back in and then gravitate around the center. So all of these look like little, like fireflies that are running, like flying around and then just coming in and coming out of the light. And it's so cute. I was having so much fun with this little idea with the fireflies. So I decided to put them everywhere. This is so much fun. You can see them again in, I think, next capsule. I used them for my part 2. I made them more dynamic there, but in here it's so fun. Because they just look like they're like gravitating around the light source. You know, kind of like little things. You got a huge question. Okay, because you hold up. Where is the question? Did you guys use gradients to get that effect or the background, or manually did all of that? We manually did all of that. We did use the shaders to like manually correct some of the colors, but for the most part, it is just having a lot of the colors manually corrected so that they match with the depth. Why is it called atmospheric perspective? It's just changing the colors of things. I don't fucking know. Math or whatever. Every time I'm in one of the swaps, I do nothing for 90% of the time until the last couple minutes of the swap, then I rush the whole thing. Yeah, but you're goated, Casey, so it doesn't matter. Isn't it just about there being more atmosphere between you and the things you're absorbing, though? Yes, it is, Wick. It just changes how it looks. That's I was trying to make it simpler for other people to understand, but yes, you are correct. I'm just trying my best to making it super simple for everybody. To be fair, these particles, something that I accidentally discovered just by playing around them. Actually have a lot of fun playing with particles. If y'all have seen me play with particles lately, with this, for example, I'm having so much fun playing with particles. Like these over here, these are so cool. I fucking love these. Or, like, where, hold up. I gotta find it. I gotta find this. In Mellow, I had a lot of fun playing with these little leaves particles. Like, this entire part has so many fun little particle objects. So I would really recommend y'all to actually start checking out particles because they're really, really cool. I genuinely think that they have so much potential to make really cool things. It's just about knowing how to add enough, you know? It's a little too long for YouTube chat, a few too many characters. I'm going to try to send it in. You can split it into 2 messages if you want to, Gosu. It's okay. You should be able to split it into 2 messages if you can. It should be okay. You should not. Atmospheric tinting feels more correct to me. I think so. I think that is technically speaking what it is. It is technically the atmospheric tinting, but it sometimes it kind of doesn't tint too much. I guess it does, but it's weird. It's a weird phrasing. I think that like in general, a lot of the art terms are just very complicated for no reason. They use a lot of really big words that don't really mean necessarily what they mean. It's kind of rough, but you know. For some reason, my stream was not set as Geometry Dash. Weird. Warping and using triggers and particles is fun. Absolutely, I definitely agree there. Something that's really cool that I feel like a lot of people don't realize is that you can very much just warp particles and like still get very similar effects. Like that is how a lot of effects get made with like really cool shit. But like this, for example. Like, just by warping them, they already have a completely different perspective. And then by doing like this, now they're rotating on a 3-dimensional plane. Warping them can make them much laggier. This is true. Be careful with how you use particles and how you use your tools, as it can always create lag. That is always one of the issues with these kinds of things. It will always make lag. I also have some particles here at the front that create some fog by using the cloud texture. Where is this? Yeah, it uses this texture to create a little bit of, no, I skipped it. This texture. It uses this texture to create a little bit of fog that kind of blends in with, the atmosphere where it's nighttime. So when you come in, it's like kind of foggy, but then as you become daytime, the fog kind of goes away and then you don't have to deal with it anymore. I feel like even to this day, so far into 2.2, people underestimate Warp a lot. I very much agree. I think Warp is probably the best tool that has come out since then. All of these things are just warped. A lot of these are like one object that is like, I think the whole part that like Dio and I made, I think the whole thing is maybe like 30k off. No, not even. I would like to say it's less than 20k. Let's see. Let's see this. How big is this entire part? This entire part, which is entire custom art, not a single thing on site, is 13k objects. 13k objects, chat. For those people that say that optimizing and making good art is impossible, show them this part. This is super unoptimized, by the way. This is literally, I have not touched optimization in this part. I literally just made the part, and Dio just made the part, and Dio has no idea how to optimize. We just made this. And there's no optimization team that needed to optimize this, because this was already made in 13k objects. This lags absolutely 0. Which is so much fun. That's the best part about this thing, is that it just doesn't lag at all. It's so fun. Is the whole gang on stream? The whole gang is not on stream, but they are vibing. They're playing Fortnite right now. I might actually go hang out with them later tonight and stream. And my Sugar Heart Pie 14k? Yeah, well that's the thing. A Locos part should be like maybe 7k. I remember merging it in and it was absolutely nothing. Even with the transition that like we made, just like us copy pasting shit, being unoptimized, like Locos part is 5k objects. And that's with counting like a bunch of and triggers that like don't actually really matter. Like Peter's part, for example. Peter's whole entire part is 7k. Like, the reason why Astralith is so object dense is actually not because, like, the parts themselves are unoptimized. With the exception of course, this one being, like, 15k, which is, again, not that bad. And a train. Which, by itself, the train is horrible. But this entire part is just a mess, so... Yeah, so you can see that this entire section is definitely the most laggy thing. Actually, Maddie's part is actually not too bad. But yeah, let's all of this thing for glory is this is the reason why the part is so object heavy. That's what camera restarter starter pack. Oh, so okay. Oh, that's another thing I didn't talk. I feel like I should have talked about this earlier. We have the camera reset starter pack. After every single part, in order to merge everything and make sure that things were correctly merged and not laggy, we needed to add a toggle trigger that toggles the whole part off. We needed to have a stop trigger that stops every single trigger to stop it from keep running so that optimization gets better. We are resetting static cameras. We are resetting offsets. We are resetting rotates. We are resetting every camera. And so the starter pack, you can basically just copy paste it at the end of every single part to make sure that the zooming, the gameplay offset, the static cameras, everything is completely like reset. So there's no issues later on with like, oh, is the part actually like the camera's bugged or is it anything? Like most of these things we took into account so that it is just like easier for us to just copy paste around. Same with like the stop triggers and the toggle triggers and the merging. Like you see that a lot of things we don't even delete. Like this for example, this could have been deleted and saved on 100 objects. Like a lot of the color triggers from Peter could have been deleted. A lot of the like the duplicated like assets, for example, like Volity's girl over here could have been deleted. Same with like this entire thing that Subpixel made. It's just there's a bunch of things in this level that like are still, there's a duplicate version of Wick's background just here, you know. Like, obviously, we could have optimized a little bit better, but these things aren't the issue. These things don't lack the level. The things that lack the level is this part, because it uses a lot of shaders and glow. This part, because it uses a lot of shaders and glow. And then the train, because it's a fucking 10k object train. Of course, I think that's the most fun part about this, though, is that you can go in the editor and, like, see so many things and see so many of the inner workings of this. And see how, like, everything was made and how, like, all the different components of the level come together to actually make something good. Like, these over here are the cutscene triggers that, like, you just teleport to. Same with my triggers over here. And, like, with the end art. Everything's just here. That's the thing. Everything is just here. You can just go and look at it if you feel like it. And if you don't, then that's fine. Seeing the editor is so fun. I agree. Okay, chat, give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back. You get to enjoy the music.
And even when you lost your hair to shame and so much gone, I stood beside you then and there until the cut was done. And even when I lost myself in all of those tall trees, you took me down, you held me up, you patched my bloody knees. And then when we were older, there were miles between. I conjured you an apparition to show you what we'd seen. The sun, the earth, the wind, the rain, and holding out for change. And all the snow you couldn't let go, you danced atop a train. I'll go wherever you go. 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 I'll go. I'll go wherever you go. I'll go wherever you go.
Apologies, chat. I got a call. I am back now. Did we lose 20,000 viewers? Are we down to 0 viewers? Is everybody left? It's making me want to build so bad. Go build. That's the fun part. What program do you use to your concept art outside of GD? I used to use Psy. That's when I did a lot of my sketches. But nowadays, I have been gifted Clip Studio Paint, and that is what I've been using. So I've had Loop Studio Paint for the past couple months, and it's okay. I have my complaints. It could be better, but you know. Went from to 20,042 to 42, unfortunately. I'm building right now, listening to the stream. Nice. It's fun. I think our problem is kind of wonky at first. You gotta get used to its flaws. Absolutely. I think it's because I've been using Psy for like years at this point. So switching like to like another program to me was really, really weird. But I'm getting used to CSP. I think it's a little bit better now. But it's still very, very clunky. Trust me, Psy is basically the same as like MS Paint. It obviously has like a couple more things that MS Paint doesn't have, but like genuinely Psy is like the most bare bones program I've ever seen. It is horrible, but I'm goated at Psy, so you know, kind of what can you do? So chat. That was a full 2 hours of Astralith. That was me talking about how we made Astralith, the first Mythic classic level. Do we get onto the second one? Psy is too intuitive to the point it's funny. Yeah, that's the thing. Actually, wait. I was waiting for Kosu to ask a question. I don't think I've seen it. Kosu, have you sent it? Wait, hold up, chat. I accidentally zoomed my my Discord by clicking on the stuff, and it completely changed my perspective, and now it looks weird. Next cap time? Chat, are we here? Because next cap is probably gonna be like a solid 2-3 hours. Do we want to keep this for another day, chat? Do we want to keep Subway Surfers for another day? My voice is getting a tiny bit tired, and I could probably just go and stream with Zero, Sting, and Arb later. Give us peek at the editor. Okay, fine. For all of those who have seen Next Capsule in the editor, you'll know that this is a lot better organized than Astralith in terms of how it works in the editor. Now, whether or not, you know, the level looks better than Astralith, I think I'll leave it up to my conclusions at the end of the stream, be it today or another day. Go for it, Kosia. I'm waiting for you. Love the in-depth review from your point of view. Well, thank you. That's kind of why I'm here today. I'm here to like actually give a lot of thoughts on why these levels are made the way that they are, and why I like them, and why I might not like them as much, you know? Go for it, Kosu. I do feel like this level's a lot better than Astralith, just because it's managed to a fuck ton better than Astralith. That is usually how I feel about this level. If anybody ever asks you, like, why do I think, like, what... If anybody ever asks me what I think is better between the two of them, I will always say Next Capsule. Not because it looks better, because I think it does, but some people will definitely disagree there. But also because it's more consistent, it's better organized, it's better directed. I just think we did a really, really good job here. Let me show you the monstrosity. I feel like people don't believe that this is real every single time that I show you the image. But like, this is here. This is all here. People don't think this is real, but it is real. It is a thing that we have with all of these gradient triggers that I gotta pretend like they don't exist. Don't worry about it. I'll talk about it more in detail when we get to it. Yeah, there's so many things. I definitely think that out of anything, and I'll be very honest with y'all here, I think that my part in Next Capsule is probably the weakest thing in this level, unfortunately. I do think it has a charm. I think it looks good, but I definitely think that I could have done a better job at closing off the level. I think that the end art I did a really good job with, but unfortunately, I was running low on time, and I wish I could have done better, but there's a ton of things to say. And I feel like for now, we're gonna lift this off here. We're gonna let Astralith be for today. And next up soon will be the next stream. How does that sound? I'm gonna answer to Koza's question, and then we're gonna end stream. You specialize in design deco and FX, but I want to start trying art and modern. And I'm wondering if you have any advice on for somebody making that switch. Since if I remember correctly, you originally did design deco, but obviously have successfully added art and modern deco to your skill set. Okay, chat. We are going into... God, Kosi, you just opened a can of worms. You just opened the biggest can of worms about my GD life. So let's go back to Surge of the Shield. And this is my first mega collab that I hosted. Way back in 2019, 2018, something like that. It's been a couple years now. You're a fan of my legacy? Well, I appreciate that. It shows that you've done your homework. This is a design level, a glow design level from 2018 that at the time, in my opinion, had some of the best design in the game. Now I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's the best, but it was pretty damn high quality for when it came out. Issues being, back then, I think theme design was done a little bit less than today. I think nowadays it's a little bit more common. This was started, I think, in 2018. So back at that time, theme design was kind of not always there. And in this sense, you can look at this kind of stuff and you're like, well, this doesn't look very themed. It just looks like, you know, you have ideas and you have design, and that's fair for the most part. I think a lot of parts are just pure design, and that's fine. But the thing is this level was inspired from the anime, the Rise of the Shield Hero, which I completely forgot the name about for a second. Because I remember, I think Sean had made a game. Yeah, Sean had made the gameplay for this, and then Zarin was supposed to decorate it as a solo. I was like, Zarin, this gameplay is so good, we gotta collab on this, and so we did. But then Zarin took too long, and so we ended up making it into a collab. And yeah, this was the very first thing that I saw, and I was like, dude, Zarin, we have to turn this into a banger project. So we did. This level's old, and it has not aged the best. However, I do think that for the time, it did have pretty decent quality. And Kill Nexus part exists, which we'll talk about it very shortly. Not to talk too much into it. So when I decided to host this collab, I was entirely this level. I actually realized that, if we make a if we're making a level themed around the shield hero, well, we should maybe theme it around the characters. And so we should have certain parts be specifically matched with like the colors and the representation that the music video had. So we took inspiration from the music video. And for example, in this part, they show the 3 different heroes. The sword hero, the bow hero, and the lance hero. The 3 main antagonists from the series at the beginning. And so we dedicated each part to one of them. So we had the sword hero, and then we had the bow hero, and then we had the lance hero. And all 3 parts were kind of dedicated to it. And while making these parts, I definitely wanted to focus more on the actual designs reflecting that of like arrows and bows. You can see it with the design of my arrows, me coming up with these designs that are like, I actually like drew all of these inspired from originally, are we lagging, chat? We are lagging, chat. Awesome. Inspired from the actual designs from the level. You'll see some buffering, but I'll keep talking. Is that crystal at the end? Yes. And so after making design for so long, this was my very first time where I actually started to dip my toes into making some things artistic side to them. Having colors that are themed around characters, having some decoration and set pieces that are themed around specific things. And so, you know, back in the day, this was definitely something that too much on. But then over time, the more that I talked with people about this project, the more of an artsy project it became. To the point where I decided to get Helloki, one of my friends, who also is a moderator in the chat, who we've all been around with. He decided to come on in and help me out with some of the animations. So, for example, this is a recreation from opening it's mimicking that specific scene. Now, it's not one-to-one. It is a recreation by Hello Cube. There was also, I think Urion helped a little bit with that. We also had this part over here that has a specific art of Raphtalia. And then later on we have like little more set pieces that like have more artsy designs to them, with the shields coming down with the different shields that the shield hero has. And then finally the end art, which was actually the first thing that I drew ever. This was my first drawing. I drew this entirely original art. Absolutely. Like, genuinely, I don't have no idea how I even came to learn how to draw. But I was like, I want to make an end art, and I'm going to grind it down. And so we did it. And I drew a sketch. I drew, and then I traced the sketch onto ink. And then I sent the picture, and then I asked Urion and Hello Cube, hey, can you help me actually make this in GD? And so, yeah, you told me to draw it. That's it. That's the thing. You was like, you need to draw the end art. And I was like, all right, fair. Because I think I started like getting into art at that time, and I wanted to learn how to draw. And so, yeah, this was definitely not an easy one. Drawing this out and then having Urion and Hello Cube like trace it back into GD was definitely very, very rough. But you can see now that, like, obviously I have improved massively as an artist from there, but you know, the vision is there. This was essentially the first time that we worked together in like a piece, like multiple people that I had worked on, and be like, wow, they actually turned out really cool. Fortunately, that was not the last time that I decided to dip my toes into art. So after this, I kind of dropped the game. I released no levels after Search of the Shield, aside from some funny little challenges here and there for the funsies, but I participated in a lot of projects. I started to join projects like Hurricane by Bionox. I started to join projects like Disentombed by Jacob Nugget. All of that because I had the opportunity to join tons of different projects back in the day. And at some point, I joined Storming Summit. Hello, Nico99, how's it going? I found out about Storming Summit, and that is the last time that I think I did design before I completely changed my style. I've done design since then, but this is like the big shift. And when we were making Storming Summit, the level was very different. If any of y'all were around back then when this level was being made, there was only one part finished, and it was Yunser. Well, not really. Yunser was still working on his part when I joined the project. There was no parts finished aside from Annalie, which if you know who that is, that's fine. If you don't, that's also fine. Which was a glow design part. It was a blue glow design part that was here. You know, this was just a blue glow design, traditional Russian glow, as some people like to call it. Completely different. You know, completely different from what it is now. And so Yunser and I came into this project, and then I was talking to Yunser and be like, yo, you're making it like more artsy wise, right? Like, you want to make it more artsy? How about like we full send it and we make this whole level artsy? And so Yunser decided to make his part and add all of these art elements to it. And I was like, bet Yunser's doing it, I gotta do it too. So as you can see, this is themed around Celeste. This is, I believe, oh my god, the Mirror Temple, level 5, essentially. Super cool thing that Yunser brought up. And I was like, well, okay, so I need to match Yunser, so I'm also gonna do that. So I went out of my way and put myself out of my comfort zone and was like, I need to make design look like art. I figured out that you can use a lot of the textures. Obviously, this is something that's been done before, but my brain, stupid design creator, did not figure out that you can use the textures to actually make fun things. And so I decided to theme a lot of the block designs around the different ways that the parts look. And so I had Golden Ridge, which in my opinion is the most beautiful part in the whole game. It is absolutely gorgeous. And so as you can see, I had all of these magma rocks that are completely broken over here because I didn't make that. Also, that's just rotated. Literally, that's just rotated. There we go. My goodness, can't believe these guys. make these magma blocks, make all of these a little bit texture to kind of match the vibe that the game was going for without necessarily just straight up ripping off the assets. Because I don't think that idea of ripping off the assets is good. I talked with Maddie about this. We've had plenty of conversations. I don't like ripping off assets. I think that that was a big mistake about this level, but I've said my words. So I feel like the designs here feel very design creator while also having the elements of it looking like the actual Golden Ridge. And then while making it, I was like, well, I need to add a background, but I can't just add like simple things. So I was like, I think it'd be really cool to make like those pixelated clouds like they have, but make my own take on these pixelated clouds. Instead of it being like the same thing, I'm going to try to use these like lines in order to make really, really cool things. Now, looking back at it, these could have definitely been optimized because looking at it, at these are probably way too many objects for what they actually are. Yeah, that's definitely way too many objects for what they're supposed to be. On top of that, we had a little cute addition of the little branches. Now, this is still me not being a super artist, but I started to like do these branches that are like shaded to like incorporate some of the more like earthy elements of the level. And that's like how slowly I started to progress. I was like, okay, I was checking reference pictures. I was playing Celeste. I opened up Celeste on another screen and I was like, okay, what can I do here to make it feel like this? This part feels snowy. Let's add some white little blobs here that like can help add a little bit to the theming. There's a lot of water. Okay, so we can add this little water rippling. Okay, the saw blades, how can I make them feel more in theme? And so it's a lot of just thinking during that process of how to actually get to that point. Hello, cool guy, how's it going? And Lanako. So that is the biggest like jump that I went. I basically went from, I think, Disentombed, where I basically just was doing theme design, to this, which is actually more art design. Now back then, a lot of this wasn't really done. I think this was done in 2019, 2020, no, 2020, definitely 2020, because this was pandemic. So at the time, I don't think much art design was done, but as you can see by the rest of the level, it ended up being an art level. They just got a bunch of art creators, and it just turned out really cool. I mean, they got a bunch of creators after that. I was essentially the second part that was done. I think during the time that I was building, I think this part got finished, the core, I think is Not Elsa. This part was also finished, which happened while I was building, and then all of the rest of the parts were completely changed a billion times after. I also helped with this part right here by making the gameplay for this, and like doing some of the ideas for the deco and stuff. Like when I made this deco, I remember that like I had the bumpers taking into account. Like I remember putting like little text here and be like, hey, this is like a bumper, which is why like this movement over here feels like weird. Hey, this like block moves. Like I took that into consideration while making the gameplay, and then it ended up really cool. So Storming Summit, that is how kind of the progression flow. We went from pure design to design that goes art, and then I disappeared for the game. I quit GD for 2 years. You can see that gap in my messages, I think. So yeah, it honestly would be funny if I just made a level 4 years ago and then welcome to 2.2. Now I did come back before 2.2. You've seen me in levels like 24 and post-playing, but I didn't really save very much. I kind of disappeared for the game for like 2 years, and during that time I actually started to learn how to draw. A lot of you can actually check my progress on that on Twitter, even though I don't draw as much anymore, but you know, you can see that like over time I just started to just draw more often, and started to get more comfortable with my skills in art in order to bring that back into GD. I've always wanted to have a lot of really fun ideas in the game, but I really struggled to like get those ideas across because I felt like I wasn't talented enough to like do these things, you know, and put them in the game and know exactly how to make them work. So I kind of started learning how to draw by myself, and then eventually when I came back, I joined 24. And this was my first collab that I joined in after taking a massive like 2-year break from the game. Not even like opening the game. I genuinely think I did not open the game for like those 2 years. And if I did, it was probably to like check on like something. Like a new level came out that looked cool and I just checked it out. But like I didn't build. I'm not telling y'all to quit for 2 years and then just grind hard for those 2 years, but that is basically what happened to me. So how it went from this is that I really just started drawing more, and in this level, I actually didn't make a part. Funny story, I was moving during the one day that moving houses during the one day that we were working on this level, and so yeah, I did not actually end up working on a part because I was moving houses, and so I was just home with no internet on my phone, calling people for 24 hours straight. It was crazy. Almost had no electricity too. But my only, well, I wouldn't say my only, but my contribution to this level was done in the form of the end screen. And that's kind of how it began. I became like the end screen person during our friend group. I was kind of just in charge of making the end screens. I helped with these end screen. I helped with Postboy's end screen. I also made Astralith and Next Capsune's end screen. So any end screen that you see from like any of our levels, it is most likely me. And so yeah, this was very much the first time that I actually decided to be like, okay, I've been drawing for 2 years. I have to do something that's pretty decent, right? Like I have to. It's a must, you know. So what do? You go and make an end screen. Oh, that is broken. I have to tell you about that. You go and make an end screen, and that end screen is entire art. Like, nothing important, just art. Just clouds. Because that was something that I was comfortable with. I felt like clouds was something that I could do. And so, yeah, ended up making these little clouds. Which I think still look pretty neat. Obviously, they could definitely be improved upon. I can definitely see where, like, my brushes and texturing come into place. Like, you can definitely see some of the rougher shapes and edges from the texturing, but I think it looks pretty neat. I think that for my first attempt, after 2 years of not doing anything in GD and coming back and doing some clouds, these don't look awful, you know? So whenever you get into actually like drawing and learning art, I think that's where you're actually going to start realizing like how much you can improve in GD. There's so many little things that you learn when you draw. You learn about color theory, you learn about composition, you learn about structure, you learn about shapes, you learn about so many different things. And when you actually sit down and actually study how to make these things and actually try to learn how to do these, it becomes so much fun. Hold up, let me use our for checkpoint, delete the percentage. There we go. And so I think I've always been somebody who found out Leah is doing speech. Yeah, I've been talking for 2.5 hours. During this entire time, I think that it gets a little bit weird to talk about my art progression because there's kind of none. I kind of went from I didn't make art in GD to I am making art in GD really, really fast. And I feel like for a lot of people, it feels very sudden and feels like, what the hell happened here? In reality, it's just like, yeah, 2 years that I spent away from the game, I was just drawing a bunch. I was just drawing a bunch, and I was just trying to do my best to, like, improve. And so, yeah, this is how we came to be over here. So if you want to know how to improve at art, just go draw, just go study it. Spend the time to actually learn the things that you need to know, and afterwards you'll see that you'll improve so fast and then you'll be okay. But anyways, chat, we're gonna leave it here. This was a very, very fun stream. I'm changing the title real quick. It's for the YouTube VOD frogs that wanna see this later. So yeah, thank you so much everybody for coming over today and watching. I think it's gonna be really, really fun to talk about next episode next. It's gonna be a really, really cool experience because I think that I have a lot more to say about that level. Not only because it took longer, but also because I think as a project it had a lot more going on. So yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that, Aqua. I I appreciate it. Very long yap session. Almost, well, actually, no, yeah, 2.5 hours of yapping. My goodness, I need a break. I'm gonna go get myself some food. Let's put a banger song. Put a banger song. Alright, everybody. I hope you see y'all tomorrow. We'll talk about next capsule next. I don't know if y'all wanted me to talk to about Who I Know and Melu Melu. I can definitely do a stream covering both of these. They should be a lot faster. But yeah, I hope you all have a good rest of your night. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye-bye.